What's up, everybody? How y'all doing today? I believe it's Tuesday, but who knows what day of the week it is these days. So today is going to be rad because I am being joined by NQ himself, the man himself, on his book release day. So grateful that he's going to join us here. So I'm going to bring him in and we're going to have a chat. And our podcast releases tomorrow. Fucking awesome. It was one of my favorite podcasts I've ever recorded. So stoked about that. And I should be joining.
There
Oh
he is.
shit. There he is, my man.
How you doing, brother?
I'm good, brother. How are you?
I'm great. What day is it?
Yeah, really? Right? I
I mean,
mean,
seriously.
who knows?
It's insane. How are you doing?
I'm good, actually. I'm good.
Yeah?
You know, there's waves. Like, I feel the waves. I feel like sometimes the waves will take me down and I'll feel kind of helpless and insignificant in this process. And then other times I'm just inspired and diving into my work and my craft and really enjoying connecting people this way. So it's everything, man. It's just it's all across the board.
Totally agree. I've felt
Yeah,
the manic tug-of-war,
right.
where it's like one moment you're up and the next moment, you're in despair. And I
Right.
think I have this like incessant need, which is maybe like a human need, to try to control this. And there's just no controlling this.
That's it.
We can all just do the best that we can, try to be kind to ourselves and other people, and then we have to let go.
That's one of the most challenging things in any regard is to let go. I mean, we're always scrambling to the future to try to get to some known reality where we know what
Yeah,
it's going to be. And that's just what everybody's doing. Oh, there's going to be this many infections and this many deaths and this many things and this. We don't know, Mike. We don't know. We just do our best and do the best we can to act responsibly and share as much love as we can during this process, you know?
yeah. What have you been doing with your time?
Writing, writing has
Great.
been the biggest thing. I got a book that I got due in September, so that process has begun. A couple poems have been coming out too. Thanks for the journal, the journal that you sent me that is going to be the birth of a eventual poetry book. So I appreciate that. A little
Dude, I'm
inspiration from
I'm
you.
very excited for your poetry book.
Yeah, man. And I'm
If we
fucking
if I share today, will you share too? I know that you're nice enough to share your audience with me and to connect with me and to promote the book, but I love hearing your words. So, I don't
yeah,
know if that's
man.
something you're open to.
Yeah, I would have to dig out. I don't have them memorized like you, but I could go grab my computer and find something cool for
Great.
sure.
Yeah, I would love that, man.
Yeah. Yeah, let's do it. And you're doing good. Everything else is good. I mean, this is a weird time to release a book, right? I mean, you have to do everything from your home.
Yeah, it's very, very bizarre. Like I'm obviously aware that there are a lot of people who are really in pain and suffering out there, and that I'm very blessed. My heart goes out to all of them. Um, there's people who are, losing loved ones. There's, nurses and doctors that are in the war right now. And I'm literally quarantined in my house. And we had a big book release planned. We had a bunch of shows and a mural and a billboard and all of that jazz. And all of it kind of disappeared overnight. So I think everyone's going through their own version of an ego death. And it's an opportunity for us to see where we're externalizing our validation and to see the difference between my expectations for this moment and the reality of this moment, and finding a way to grieve what I can grieve, but also be at peace with it and not make my experience the only experience, but also not to invalidate my experience.
Mm, yeah, yeah.
So I'm trying to do all of those things, and the virtual book tour has been the way that we've been connecting with people, and it's been fun.
Yeah. I mean, it's when we have the options restricted, we have two choice. One, we can be in resistance to that and be like, fuck this. This is bullshit. This sucks. Like, or we just accept it and then move on. I mean, and the faster we can do the latter versus the former, the more successful and the more joy we'll have in our life. And so it's just a good opportunity collectively for all of us to be like, all right, well, there is shit out of our control right now. So let go.
Yeah. You know, so I used to think like I had this whole spiel. I always have these like diatribes that I do, you know? And I had
Hmm.
one diatribe that was about like, why do human beings always feel the need to answer the next question? Almost sometimes at the risk of their own safety. Like, and I was specifically relating it to AI. Like, why are human beings continuing to try to create AI when there's a distinct possibility that that's going to wind up backfiring on us, right? And you know, there's the whole Joe Rogan podcast with Elon Musk where they kind of talk
Hmm.
about that. And so, you know, I was like, well, maybe it's this incessant curiosity that's in our DNA that just forces us to evolve. And in evolving, we always have to step into the next space. And so I was like, I would say that at like dinner parties or on stage or wherever the fuck. And then I had this realization that that was actually bullshit. It's not some incessant thing in our DNA. What it is that when the environment changes, you're forced to adapt.
Yep.
So why did a single cell organism, you know, evolve out of the ocean and crawl onto land eventually? You know, well, it was because there was probably some sort of a disaster in that particular cove, and it was forced to evolve in order to survive. And so this is like a very bizarre global period
Yep.
where we're all the all of humanity is being forced to adapt, and we'll see where we go from
You know what
here.
it reminds me of? It reminds me of, like, I think it was Enter the Dragon, where Bruce Lee finds himself in this room that's just all mirrors, and
Yeah,
everywhere you look is a mirror, and then you can't avoid looking at your stuff right now. Like, you can't avoid looking at your relationship. You can't avoid looking at your emotional health or your physical health or your financial health, or everywhere you look, you're like mirror, 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 mirror. You know, and like
yeah,
no matter what, we have to look at our stuff right now, like individually and collectively. And it's really interesting times. And that's the ultimate blessing of this, even though it is a tragedy on so many levels. But the blessing is the opportunity that comes from any tragedy, which is to look at it like, all right, well, what can we do with this? Like, what is this
exactly.
potentially going to precipitate?
I was just talking to my buddy about this the other day. You know that that thing that's been going around the internet where it's like, "Thank you, coronavirus." Have you seen this thing?
No, I haven't.
There's this thing where like they put up a video and it's actually quite beautiful. There's a lot of truth in what is being said, but it's just very one-sided. You know, it's like there's people who are either like it's, you know, only an opportunity. Like I hear a lot of entrepreneurs who are like, all of the businesses that are started in, you know, the tragedy, and that's true. And then I hear other people who are like, this is the end of the world.
Yeah,
Like it's just complete Armageddon. And it's
yeah,
like, okay, that's true. But like really it's the middle ground, right? And it's holding both of those truths in the same place. So what you're saying is right, which is like it is heartbreaking what's going on. There's an unfathomable amount of suffering out there. And simultaneously, there are opportunities for growth, and a lot of growth comes from pain. And this is an opportunity for us to grow individually and collectively.
yeah.
And so, yeah, to your point, there's a lot of mirrors, and sometimes I'm catching one and not liking what I'm seeing.
No shit, man. No shit. That's the point of it. That's the point. If we did like everything we saw, I think we'd be floating on a lotus flower, like drifting on a cloud as the enlightened one, you know, because there's always shit in all the little corners for us to see.
I know. Did I ever tell you about that, the trip that I took to India?
You
With,
did. Yeah,
well,
yeah.
did I tell you this thing about Gerard Butler was there with us?
No, you didn't. I
Okay,
know
so
Gerard too.
this is a funny story. So, and he won't mind if I tell this story. So Gerard Butler was there on the trip with us. And at the beginning, no one knew who he was. For anybody who's listening, by the way, what's up, everyone? Lots of love. I hope you're happy and safe and healthy wherever you are. Okay, so he's like, he's with us and he's like a great guy. So he's just like, there's a group of 30. And we were at a monastery where the Dalai Lama was. And there were like us and maybe thousands and thousands and thousands of monks. Okay. And so at the beginning, no one recognized Gerard Butler. Like he was just one of us. And then word started getting around through the monks that Gerard Butler was there. And at a certain point, bro, he could not walk 5 feet without all the monks coming up to him asking for selfies. And at one point, I went out on my own, okay, one day just by myself. And I'm like, I don't know, 5 miles away from where like the main monastery was. And I was just in like a little side town. And this dude rolls up to me on a motorbike and he goes, "Gerard Butler?" And I go, "No, man. I'm not Gerard Butler." And he goes, "Oh, you know him?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know him." And he goes, "Where does he stay?" And I said, "I can't tell you that, man." And then he takes off. And I just thought it was so funny, like, because here I thought, like, the monks were going to be these enlightened people, like, floating on a lotus flower. And of course, many of them were, and they dedicate their entire lives to being present, to their breath, to their meditation, to prayer. And it was gorgeous, but they also just wanted to take a fucking selfie with Gerard Butler, dude.
That's so funny. I mean, are they watching 300? I mean, well, what are they doing? Do they put their saffron robes in a Spartan, in a Spartan toga and just practice kicking people and going, "This is Sparta," and just like in their own way, living out their Gerard Butler fantasy?
You know what it made me think? Hollywood is powerful.
Yeah.
Because it's storytelling. And I was like, wow, here I am with my book, which I love, by the way. I love this book. I want to get it out to the world. But it's a book. When you make a movie, it translates to every language. It goes all around the entire world. People can get it on the big screen or in their house. And like, these stars change the world. Like, the stories that they're telling shift culture all around the world.
The barrier to entry to watching a movie too versus reading a book is like, it's so much easier, so people are much more inclined to just turn on a movie and watch it than they are to read a book these days. And poetry is one of those things that's been an interesting kind of lost art, and it's beautiful to see yourself and Prince EA and occasionally myself dabble in it, but to kind of bring this back into the forefront where we're doing the same thing, telling a story, which is in its own way, its own art form of alchemizing some form of pain or love into a metaphor or words and ways to describe and see things and paint a picture with those clumsy tools that we have, the best we have, which are words, and try and figure something out, trying to get to truth.
Isn't it so crazy that I really can never wrap my mind around it every time I'm talking to someone and I get deep? And by the way, I love talking to you, dude. Every single time we talk, I feel like we go down a rabbit hole and I get lost and I get found.
Yeah.
So, but it is weird that we're just talking to each other and this is just sounds. It's so bizarre, man, that you actually understand what I'm saying and I understand what you're saying, and we're across the country from each other in this technology, making noises and communicating. It's wild.
Yeah. It would be interesting. What I've always wanted to do is I've been really curious about, like, especially in the relationship construct, I was always curious about, like, what would happen if we went just 2 days living our normal life, but treated it like a vipassana, where you couldn't communicate, like couldn't write things. You just had to kind of like sense each other and just like be with each other without using words, and to just see like if any other faculties of empathy or kind of intuition would develop, like beyond just the words, which are always just approximations of what you're actually feeling anyways. Words will never exactly capture the truth of a sentence.
That's true.
So it's like, I've always wanted to have that experiment, but I've never actually like tried it. But I think it would be dope to like communicate, even with friends or whoever, like take a day where you're hanging out with somebody. I mean, with with a lover, I think it would be better because there's other, just different
There's
options
other
about,
ways.
there's other things that you can express. But it's just to totally tap into that nonverbal communication and just ride with it and see how much you could figure out. Like, see, like if your partner really wanted a back scratch, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like, and we're not playing like pantomime here. We're not like,
Right.
you scratch my back, you know, it's like, not like science. Yeah. But like a bear, just like wiggling up against
Yeah.
something, you know? But just try to like beam that idea, like really love a back scratch right now. Just see if you could like
You can
pick it up.
energetically
Yeah,
communicate it.
yeah. But we
I
got
think,
words
yeah,
and
to your point, like the words are just, they're like mirrors of the truth.
right.
They're like reflections of the truth, but they're not ever going to actually be the truth. So maybe if you could energetically communicate the back scratch,
Yeah.
that
Maybe you
that
get
would
it.
actually be, and it seems like this is the right time to have that experiment because
It
we
is a
have
perfect
nothing but
time.
time.
Right.
We
Totally.
could just be quiet with each other and see what happens.
Yeah.
I actually have a poem in the book that I would do live, and I haven't done it in a while, but I used to do it pretty much all the time. Like I would have it at the middle of my set where I would say, this is called silence. And I'd be in front of 500 people or something, and I'd just be like,
Uh-huh. People have to respond. I can't,
and
I know the poem and I still can't help it.
it's hard.
It's still causing a reaction.
It's hard. And what would happen is I would do it sometimes for like a minute and a half until it was super uncomfortable. And people would laugh. Some people would start to cry. I would get angry at a certain point. I would get sad, but I would just stay quiet. And then in the end, I would say, it took me my whole life to write that poem. And
The truth.
I feel like it did, because to actually just be quiet with people when I'm supposed to be performing, doing something, entertaining, it's a challenge even for me. Even though I know what the magic trick is. So,
Hmm.
that's why the darkness thing that you did is still so wild to me, because you took away everything.
Hmm.
And then you saw, well, what is there?
Yeah. And that's another thing that I really want to do with somebody because so the
Mm,
darkness was cutting away all sight. It was cutting away all sound. I mean, you could make sounds yourself, of course. You weren't
right.
deaf in that way, but it was silent, it was dark, and it was alone. But it'd be interesting to just have the darkness and then be there with somebody. You know what I
Mm,
mean? And like just to understand like how much more you would know, how much you would pay attention to the subtleties of words and like how you could pick up on the energy of somebody or like what was going on. I mean, I
mm,
think these are all like curious experiments to withdraw something. And I think this is collectively the experiment we're going in now. Like, all right, what if we withdraw the option to go out and distract ourselves and play and go out to
right.
dinner and do all of these things? Like we restrict something and then we learn something. And then when that thing gets unrestricted, we hopefully have a brand new appreciation for it on the way out. And I
Exactly.
think that's exactly what's happening now.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. I mean, if you did the darkness thing with someone, but you could talk to them, then you'd be like, hey, scratch my back. You'd
Yeah,
be like,
totally.
where is it?
Follow my voice.
You just have the opposite experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're right. It's like, well, for you, when you go to the gym, I mean, I don't go to the gym like you go to the gym, but let's say when I did go to the gym, you do different muscles, right? You don't just
Mhm.
like work the same muscles over and over again. You would do different muscles, and then having that muscle stronger somehow would strengthen the other muscle when you went out to work it, and the whole package comes together. So in restricting yourself in your life and then adding it back in, you have more appreciation of it, and you're forced to build other muscles.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. exactly. And
So
that's it. We're building other muscles. Like families are teaching their kids, you know, they're homeschooling their kids. Relationships are having to confront and work on the stuff that's going on. And of course, people are using, I mean, I read somewhere that alcohol consumption is just through the roof right now, right?
yeah,
Because as you have to confront things, a lot of times you don't want to confront things. If you don't like what you're seeing in that mirror, if you don't like what's in the mirror of your relationship or the mirror of your family construct, you're like, well, wine will take care of that if I apply it
right.
liberally, you know, or vodka tonics or whatever your jam is. And that's of course one way, but it's a very temporary way because eventually that truth is going to catch up and bite you in the ass.
Yeah. I mean, dude, it's just hard to deal with the not knowing. It's hard to deal with the anxiety of the moment. And so it's understandable. You know, I've been ODing on food.
Yeah. Oh
I've been
man, my
like,
snack game is out of
it's like
control.
ridiculous, dude. It's really not. It's not appropriate. Like, it's like my snacks are right over there. They're just right there. Why would I not go over there? I mean, it's like, you know,
Yeah.
but then again, like that's exactly what we're talking about. We're really lucky. Like it's a privilege to quarantine.
Mm.
There's a lot of people who are not sure where their next meal is coming from. They are not sure how they're going to pay rent in 2 days. You know, rent is due April 1st. You know, so I guess that's tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Yeah.
And you know, a lot of people have hit me up. I mean, there's a lot of people that are really struggling. So my heart goes out to them, and
No doubt.
that's why hopefully we just are trying to be good to each other, put content out that inspires people, gives them a little bit of peace of mind, and just know that we're all in this together, you know?
That's it. And hopefully we know that we're more in this together than we ever realized, you know, and
Yeah.
that's the crazy thing. I was going through our podcast and you tell the exact story about space invaders coming down and like the response that the world would have if space invaders come down, and we'll release that on the podcast tomorrow.
Yeah.
But it's so like, because we recorded before this whole pandemic happened, but the
Yeah.
way that we go through the story is it's like the same story. Just replace space invaders or UFO with pandemic, and then all
Yeah.
of a sudden we're seeing some of those things happen with this very invisible rather than a visible external threat. But it's
Yeah.
very fucking interesting.
The virus doesn't care about our nations, you know?
Nope, doesn't care about it. Doesn't care about our races. Doesn't care about our nations. Doesn't care about any of that stuff. Doesn't care what any of the differences and grievances and judgments and all of this shit that we might have had. It's like, okay, whatever. Like, you got a
Yeah.
body? Oh, you got a body? Oh, you're team people. I'm team
Right.
virus. I'm
Right.
coming for you, team people. And then it's our
Right.
opportunity to be like, oh yeah, we're team people. So let's do this, you know? It
That's
just
why
puts us on.
I hope we evolve into that. I mean, that's really like what we need to be doing. I mean, with all nations, by the way, yeah, of course we have differences of opinions, but like building walls doesn't help. We have to build bridges. We have to find middle grounds. We have to be able to communicate best practices so that we can fight this war. I mean, as a united human front.
Yep.
And I hope that there are things that we could learn from that would last a lot longer than this battle, because there will be an end to this. I mean, eventually we are going to create a vaccine. And so there is a finish line, even though there will be a lot of pain and suffering from now until then. But, you know, I mean, at a certain point, if 20 years go by, there might not be an end to climate change. You know, we might hit a tipping point, and that would be an existential threat. So, you know, we have to be on the same team, you know?
And this is like a little warm-up round almost.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I kind of, as tragic as it is and as brutal as it is for so many people on so many fronts, still compared to the existential threat of, you know, massive environmental calamity universally expressed. Like, we're going to make it out of this all right, you know, relatively speaking, compared to the, you know, cataclysmic nature of what could happen in a cataclysmically, you know, riddled history of Earth. You know what I
Right.
mean? So this is like a little like wake up call, a little warm up round, you know, for us to be like, all right, what are our systems and how are we interacting with each other? How are we navigating this game? So,
Yeah,
you know, that's a
totally.
blessing.
Hey man, do you want to hear? I actually wrote something new, and I wasn't going to do it because I'm obviously promoting for my book. And so it would be weird for me to do a fucking poem that's not in my book. But
Let's get weird though. That's what we do. We
yeah,
get
are you
weird.
cool to get weird? Because
Yeah.
here's the thing, our podcast is coming out tomorrow. And by the way, that was one of my favorite conversations. That day was so amazing,
Likewise,
man.
brother. The whole day was
Yeah, we
amazing.
were like
Yeah.
going for like 6 hours basically. The podcast was only 2, but we
Yeah.
had a whole lifetime before we
No
even did the
doubt, man.
podcast.
I can't wait to release that tomorrow. It's gonna be phenomenal. Yeah, let's get weird. Let's do that new.
Okay,
We'll do
cool.
that new poem, and then I'm gonna get my computer so I can read
Great. All right.
one of my recent poems as well.
All right,
And
great.
then
I'll let you get it. And so this is your place in Austin. Okay, you froze up. What'd you say?
yeah, here I go. I went to the bad internet zone of my house. Now I'm back in the good one. What were you saying?
Everybody got one.
Yeah, I know, right?
Oh, I was asking you that's your place in Austin, right?
Yep. This is it. Hunkered down here. I might make it out to Sedona at some point, but we'll figure that out. We'll see. Depends on all the travel restrictions and everything that's going on. So
yeah,
man. Well, let's do it. You want to read your poem, and then I'll drop a quick one
for
that
sure.
I wrote.
Okay, cool. Am I coming in all right for you?
Yeah, you're coming in fine. Can you hear me all right?
All right, perfect. All right, so this will probably change because it's not really finished yet, but I'll read it anyway. And no one's heard this, so, you know. The virus doesn't care about our nations. It doesn't care about the boundaries drawn by our imaginations. It doesn't care about our flags or our affiliations. It won't acknowledge differences. It sees no separations. It won't discriminate by city, state, country, or continent. It has no opinions, no beliefs, no language, and no politics. It doesn't have an argument. It doesn't want to change your mind. It doesn't have a strategy or legacy to leave behind. It's not impressed by money, and it's not obsessed with time. It doesn't recognize the ownership of signing dotted lines. It doesn't understand the concept of justice or of crime. It doesn't empathize with how you feel or value mankind. It is blind and invisible. It spreads without a principle. It only wants to stay alive. It hides in individuals, survives in individuals, and thrives in individuals. So people have been panicking or claiming they're invincible. We're either uninformed, unaware, or over cynical. Our leaders have been followers. The negligence is criminal. It's not an existential threat, and yet it's real as it can get. So get prepared, because posting clever memes is not a safety net. The supermarket's empty shelves. The market looks like jagged hills. The bank teller's wearing gloves for counting out my folding bills. Ghost towns on every block, empty restaurants and shops. Everyone's confused and shocked. The whole world is fucking stopped. This is a warning, a wake-up call for all we've been collectively ignoring, a wake-up call for all we've been collectively destroying, and the silence is transforming. For a person to make systemic change, they usually have to face a trauma, something that forces them to see themselves outside the drama. And in that window of today, they analyze tomorrow and decide to make a shift amidst the suffering and sorrow. But if they fall asleep again, they'll just repeat the circumstance. Then 10 years could pass by before they get another chance. And since individuals make up collectives, humanity itself operates from this perspective. It's time to be reflective. So even in our social distancing, we're still connected. From personal responsibility to introspection, society is not outside of me, it's a reflection. We're at an intersection. It's unsustainable if we keep going this direction. That's why we're slowing down into a global Great Depression from a global Great Deception. To prioritize profit over people and the planet is a pandemic worth our panic. I just can't understand it. How can we value corporations as commodities without taking into account their immorality, without taking into account the inequality? The new success will be access, not excess. It's unprecedented, so there aren't any next steps. I'm quarantined inside my house, stuck onto my Velcro couch, FaceTiming all my friends, debating if the world will end. I know it won't, because the virus is a warning, a wake-up call for all we've been collectively ignoring, a wake-up call for all we've been collectively destroying, and the silence is informing. It either happens to me or it happens for me. So our response will write the future history of our human story. This is Mother Nature shaking us into the morning, waking us so we can rise against the global warming, making us face the consequences in the mirror. We might not get another chance to see ourselves clearer. We have to choose love over fear. We have to take responsibility for what we're doing while we're here. See, the pollution is outside us and inside us. The environment thinks we're the virus. That's why it fights us. We are entering the dark night of the soul. Our consumption's an addiction, but we're never going to fill the hole. There will never be an end to more. So if more is our goal, we'll fight a never-ending war. We'll sacrifice our lives and we'll never know what for. Let's meet up in between, said the ocean to the shore. The trees we plant now will be our grandchildren's shade. We're leaving them the world we made. So be the change. Be safe and be kind. Believe the world will be fine. Be in your heart and your mind until we leave this behind. Be empathetic or try. Be on humanity's side. But whatever you want to be, just please be inside. Because we're all in this together and there's nowhere to hide. It takes a common enemy to bridge the global divide. If we don't learn our lesson now, there might not be a next time. I'm having daymares for now of a forever nighttime because the earth is screaming at us and it's running out of patience. It's giving us a warning, but it's... So if we fall asleep again, we'll wake up to exterminations because climate change doesn't care about our silly nations.
Damn, that is fire. Thank you for sharing that, brother.
The whole thing broke up
Fucking
in
beautiful,
the end.
man. A little bit. I could still hear you. The video cut out, but I could hear every word. That was fucking awesome, man. Thank you for sharing that, brother. Can you hear me?
Let's see.
Internet couldn't handle it. Can you hear me now?
It's back. Nah, you're coming in and out. Fuck.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
I can hear.
Jump back on now. Hello?
Hello? Yeah, I can hear you.
Did the poem get fucked up in the end?
Not to me. So I don't know if the people out there, could you guys hear it out there? Yeah, I think I could hear every word. So I think you got it. It was fucking amazing.
Oh,
man.
perfect.
That's got to get out there,
yeah.
man. So beautiful. So apt for what we're going through, man.
Thanks. I just finished it a couple of days ago, and I haven't known what to do with it yet. So it's not quite there yet. So it was good to share it with you guys, just to feel what it feels like to perform. Anytime you perform something, you become informed of what's working for you and what's not. And so it's always an opportunity and a blessing to share it, you know?
Yeah, no doubt. Blessing to listen to it.
Will you read one?
Yeah, man, I'll read one. And this one, actually, since we're talking about the environment, this is one I wrote a little while ago, but I haven't performed it in a bit. So it's called Who. I have to confess something. I haven't always been a good recycler. So one day, as I was mixing glass bottles with used avocados, my brother called me out. He said, "Come on, man. If not you, then who?" Right then I realized the reason I didn't sympathize with this simple exercise was just a matter of size. Because in a world this big, there is always some forsaken piece of land taken over by a waste management corporation as an act of inoculation against our indignation at having to live with our own abomination. Hence my lack of participation. But what happens when the borders of this nation can no longer house this mountain of extirpation without every domestication overcome by the olfactory sensation of biological degradation? Then when it really smells like shit, will we start recycling and composting then? Nah, we'll probably just make high fashion masks to cover the fact that the world smells like ass, and Glade will make airplanes that drop gas in flavors like blue sky and green grass. That's kind of fucked up, right? Because it might just come true. So now it's my turn to ask you. If not you, then who?
Woo! That was dope, dude.
Thanks, brother.
That was fire, man.
Thanks, brother. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I love the image of the plane dropping
blue
whatever,
sky
like,
and green
like,
grass.
You know, yeah, exactly. Like scented sanitizer, you know?
Yeah.
And it's funny, like usually I can like know where the rhyme is going. I didn't know you were going to say green grass. It was cool, man. It was like blue sky and green grass. That definitely could be something that's in my cupboard right now.
No doubt, man. No doubt. When you were doing your poem, I was talking to Nako recently about how we're worshiping the God of more, right? It's always the God of more.
Yeah.
I was like, man, it's time to put the God of more back in the drawer. You know, like let's just
That's
that little.
That's the start of a poem. Did you start one like that?
I should.
Put the
Maybe
God
I will
of
now.
war in
I'm
the
gonna do
drawer.
that now. Yeah.
Do it, brother.
Yeah, I will.
Well, look, man,
Well, I
I
love you, man.
appreciate you, dude. I always love chatting with you, man. And,
Likewise, brother.
you know, anybody who wants to check out this book, by the way, this Inquire Within book, you know, it's out now. You can buy it or you can get the audio book and you can have me reading my poems in your ears anytime you want. And I'm really proud of this book. It's the first time I've ever had a home for my art. So if you get it, you know, tag me in it. And I'm just excited to keep building with you, man.
Hell yeah, man. Oh yeah. And I can't wait for people to listen to this podcast too.
Yeah, we really went in.
It comes out tomorrow. We
was
went
really
deep.
fun, man.
Went
Yeah.
deep. All right. I love you so
All right,
much,
my
brother.
friend.
Thanks for dropping in, man.
Appreciate you,
Talk
bro.
to you soon.
Okay,
You
man.
too.
Lots of love.
Yeah, you too. Peace.